The grand halls of Xylos hummed with tension. Lyra Valerius watched the proceedings from her senatorial platform, trying to maintain the stoic demeanor expected of Xylosian representative. But even her crystalline features couldn't hide the concern in her multifaceted eyes. The humans have gone too far this time. Ambassador Grok's voice boomed across the chamber, his massive groin physique tensing with barely contained rage. An automated probe in restricted Elder Hegemony space? Activating an ancient defense artifact? This is not mere incompetence. It is a deliberate act of aggression. The Galactic Concord Assembly Chamber, carved from a hollowed-out asteroid at the heart of the artificial megastructure that served as the galaxy's capital, bristled with murmurs of agreement, particularly from the Elder Hegemony section. Lyra sighed. Humans had only been part of the Concord for 50 standard cycles, barely a moment in galactic politics. Their first contact had been just a half-century earlier, when they'd achieved faster-than-light travel through what the Concord considered a dangerously haphazard method. Since then, they'd stumbled from one diplomatic incident to another. Last cycle, a human delegation had tried to patent a universal mathematical concept, causing outrage among the scientific compact representatives. Before that, they'd gifted organic flowers to a silicon-based species, necessitating emergency medical intervention for the ambassador who'd politely attempted to smell the gift according to human custom. And who could forget their proposal to settle a territorial dispute between the Viridian and Naxulgar species with something called hockey playoffs? Elias Thorne, the current human ambassador, stood at the podium, his weathered face lined with frustration. Unlike his predecessors, Thorne was a seasoned diplomat, but he was still hamstrung by the United Earth Directorate's fragmented politics. Honorable representatives, Thorne began, I assure you the probe's incursion was accidental. Earth deeply regrets. Regrets? Grok interrupted, slamming a massive fist down. Always regrets. Always apologies. The humans learn nothing. They bring only chaos. From her observer's box, Zarkali, the renowned pangalactic journalist, adjusted her recording apparatus. This would make excellent material for her next broadcast across the Concord networks. Lyra activated her speaking node. Perhaps we should consider this incident in proper context. The probe appears to have been drawn to the Elder artifact by an automated attraction protocol. Our scientists have confirmed. Our sacred relics are not on trial here, Senator Valerius, a slender representative from the Elder Hegemony, cut in. Humanity's recklessness is. The debate raged for hours. Lyra advocated for investigation and proportional response. The Mercantile Union representatives calculated aloud the economic impact of various sanctions. The Scientific Compact members were divided, some fascinated by human ingenuity, others alarmed by their cavalier approach to technological development. When the final vote came, Lyra watched the holographic tally with a sinking feeling. The motion passed by a substantial margin. Earth would be exiled from the Galactic Concord. The solar system would be isolated for 100 standard cycles, roughly 100 Earth years. A Concord fleet would establish and enforce the quarantine. Ambassador Thorne's face went ashen. Esteemed representatives, he said, his voice thin, I beg you to reconsider. This punishment will set human development back generations. We have much to offer. The Assembly has spoken, intoned High Chancellor Moxnull, the senior Shaliak representative who held the rotating leadership position this cycle. Humanity has demonstrated it is not yet ready for galactic society. Perhaps in a century, you will have matured sufficiently. Until then, Earth and its colonies are formally excluded from Concord space, commerce, and protection. As Thorne was escorted from the chamber, Lyra caught his eye. She gave him a subtle nod, the closest thing to sympathy she could offer publicly. Zarkali's tentacles quivered with excitement as she sent her headline across the galactic networks. Concord votes. Earth exiled for a century. Elias Thorne's return to Earth sparked chaos. The United Earth Directorate convened an emergency session, broadcast globally into the colonies on Mars, Europa, and Titan. Leaders from the Americas Confederation, Eurasian Alliance, African Union, and Pacific Rim Coalition argued bitterly over responsibility. Your probe. Your authorization, shouted the Eurasian premier. Our probe, but your navigation protocols, the America's president countered. Enough. The quiet voice cut through the cacophony like a laser through fog. All eyes turned to the slight figure who had entered the chamber unannounced. Dr. Eris Thorne stood at the entrance, her sharp features. A younger, more intense version of her father's. Unlike Ambassador Thorne's diplomatic finery, she wore the simple gray uniform of UED Advanced Sciences Division. Her dark hair was pulled back severely, emphasizing the intensity of her gaze. Dr. Thorne, the UED Secretary General, acknowledged, "This is a closed session. And yet, you need me here." Eris walked to the central podium without invitation. "You're arguing over blame when you should be preparing for evacuation." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. "Project Althea has been anticipating this scenario for over a decade," she continued. "We've run the simulations. Fighting the Concorde is suicide. Begging is pointless. They've made their decision. So we should just accept exile?" The African Union Chancellor demanded. "No," Eris replied, her voice level. "We should embrace it." Over the next hours, Eris Thorne outlined a plan so audacious that even the factious Earth leadership fell silent in astonishment. Project Althea, named for the earthly god of growth and rebirth in ancient Greek mythology, had been developing technology that could potentially create a localized temporal field, a bubble where time flowed differently. "The Concorde gave us a century," Eris explained. "We'll take that century and multiply it. Inside our temporal field, we can experience 500 years of development while only 50 pass outside. And we'll do it far from their watching eyes." "You're suggesting we leave? Abandon Earth?" The Pacific Rim representative looked horrified. "No," Eris corrected. "I'm suggesting we take Earth's people and knowledge with us. Leave the planet itself as a monument to what the Concorde thought they knew about humanity." Ambassador Thorne watched his daughter with a mixture of pride and sorrow. "The Exodus fleet," he murmured. "Precisely, father," Eris nodded. "We've been building the framework for years. Now we accelerate. Every nation, every corporation, every resource dedicated to constructing generation ships and temporal field generators. We take our destiny into our own hands." "The Concorde will never allow this," someone objected. Eris smiled thinly. "By the time they realize what we're doing, we'll be gone. They expect us to protest, to struggle against the quarantine. They don't expect us to simply leave." The plan was approved, not with enthusiasm, but with the grim determination of a species with no better options. Project Althea went public. Earth mobilized on a scale unseen in its history. Admiral Kale, commander of the Valerian flagship Intrepid Justice, approached the Sol system with a mixture of duty and regret. The Concorde fleet he led was imposing. 50 capital ships, hundreds of support vessels, all to enforce the exile of a single species. Seemed excessive, but the elders had insisted. "We're detecting unusual activity throughout the system," Admiral, his second-in-command, reported. "Massive launches from Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies." Kale frowned, his violet skin creasing around his eyes. "Military vessels?" "Negative. Appear to be transport ships. Thousands of them. Civilian Exodus vessels. And something else. Energy readings unlike anything in our databases." The view screen showed the astonishing sight. A massive fleet of human vessels of all sizes and configurations, not scattered in panic, but moving in perfect coordination along carefully plotted trajectories away from a solar system. At their center, enormous structures generated swirling, iridescent fields that seemed to bend the very fabric of reality. "They're running," someone whispered on the bridge. "No," Kale corrected, studying the patterns. "This is too organized. Too purposeful." A communication request pinged. Kale accepted, and a simple text message appeared on screen. "The galaxy voted to exile Earth. Humanity didn't wait to be asked twice. We voluntarily withdraw from Concorde space. Good luck." As the Concorde fleet watched in bewilderment, the last human ships disappeared into what appeared to be a self-created fold in space-time, leaving behind an abandoned home world and a profound silence. Zarkali's report that cycle became an instant classic in galactic journalism. Humans ghost galaxy. Entire species disappears rather than accept punishment. Inside the temporal bubble, humanity faced its greatest challenge. The first years were brutal. Resources calculated to last generations were stretched thin when several temporal field generators failed, forcing more people into fewer ships. Old Earth rivalries threatened to tear the fleet apart as nations competed for dwindling supplies. The UED struggled to maintain order. Eris Thorne, working to stabilize the temporal fields, received word that violence had broken out between vessels from rival Earth factions. She arrived at the emergency council meeting to find representatives shouting over each other. "This is exactly why the Concorde exiled us," she said, cutting through the noise. "They saw us as fractious, chaotic, unable to transcend our divisions. Are we going to prove them right?" Her words didn't solve everything, but they began a shift. The Exodus fleet, nearly 1 billion humans distributed across thousands of vessels, slowly realized that old Earth identities meant little in the void. New communities formed based on necessity and function rather than form a nationality. The Unified Human Council emerged from this crucible, not a perfect democracy, but a pragmatic governing body representing the fleet's major sections. Eris, despite her reluctance, became its first coordinator. "We have 500 subjective years," she reminded the council regularly. "Not to survive, to thrive, to transform. When we return, humanity must be unrecognizable to ourselves and to the galaxy." The transformation came in stages. Year 50, the resource crisis. Near civil war over diminishing supplies until a breakthrough in matter conversion technology allowed for artificial synthesis of basic elements. Year 100, the identity shift. The last generation to remember Earth as a home rather than a historical concept passed away. New generations identified primarily as fleet-born. Year 150, the Great Synthesis. Technological development accelerated as necessity drove innovation. The discovery of subspace energy extraction eliminated resource constraints. Year 200, neural integration. Direct brain-computer interfaces became standard, allowing humans to share knowledge and experiences instantly, further eroding old divisions. Year 300, physiological adaptations. Genetic modifications optimized humans for space living and extended lifespans dramatically. Eris Thorne, through a combination of life extension therapy and neural backups, continued to guide humanity, becoming more symbol than person. Year 400, dimensional physics breakthrough. Scientists discovered principles that allowed manipulation of space-time far beyond the original temporal bubble technology. Humanity could now traverse vast distances instantaneously and manipulate matter at fundamental levels. Year 500, the return decision. The Unified Human Council, now a hyperconnected collective of augmented humans, determined that they had achieved sufficient advancement. It was time to reveal themselves to the galaxy again. Eris Thorne, her consciousness preserved across multiple systems but primarily housed in a youthful-appearing body, addressed the council one final time as coordinator. 5 centuries ago, we were exiled for our immaturity. We have used that time to grow beyond anything the Concorde could imagine. We return now not as supplicants, but as equals, perhaps more than equals. She paused. The question now is, how shall we reintroduce ourselves to a galaxy that cast us out? After much debate, the decision was made. The temporal bubble would be dissolved. The Exodus fleet, now a marvel of engineering far beyond Concorde technology, would return to Concorde space, but not to Earth. Not yet. From the perspective of the Galactic Concorde, only 50 years had passed since humanity's self-imposed exile. Half the mandated sentence. Vela Valerius, granddaughter of former Senator Lyra, was presiding over a routine trade negotiation when the alert came. Massive energy signatures had been detected at the edge of Concord space. Thousands of vessels had appeared simultaneously through some unknown transportation method. When the vessels were identified as human in origin, the Concorde fell into panic. Emergency sessions were called. Grek, grandson of Ambassador Grok and now a military commander in the Elder Hegemony forces, demanded immediate military response. They were exiled for 100 cycles. It has been only 50. This is an act of war, he thundered. Before the Concorde could mobilize a response, a single human vessel approached Xylos. It requested, no, it informed the Concorde that a diplomatic delegation would arrive to discuss humanity's return to galactic society. The vessel was unlike anything in Concorde records, seemingly made of flowing liquid metal, propelled by no visible means, and immune to standard scanning technologies. When it deployed a small shuttle to Xylos, security forces surrounded the landing area. From the shuttle emerged a figure that appeared human, yet subtly different. Taller, more graceful, with eyes that seemed to perceive more than visible light. She introduced herself simply as the Ambassador Reborn, though rumors quickly spread that this was somehow Eris Thorn herself, the architect of humanity's disappearance half a century earlier. The emergency Concorde assembly that convened was tense, with representatives from all major factions present. The human ambassador took the central podium, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the anxiety filling the chamber. Esteemed representatives of the Galactic Concorde, she began, her voice melodious yet authoritative. 50 of your years ago, this body voted to exile Earth for a century. Humanity chose not to contest this decision, but to embrace it fully. We withdrew not just from your space, but from conventional time itself. Murmurs swept the chamber as she continued. Within our temporal field, we experienced 500 years of development, free from external influences. We have solved problems your civilizations still struggle with. Unlimited clean energy, instant transportation across vast distances, manipulation of matter at quantum levels, indefinite lifespans, and seamless integration of biology with technology. She gestured, and holographic demonstrations appeared throughout the chamber, showing technologies that seemed like magic to even the most advanced Concorde scientists. We return now, not to rejoin the Concorde as junior members, but to offer an alliance between equals. The Unified Human Council represents a humanity transformed, not the fractious, impulsive species you exiled, but a cohesive, advanced civilization that has transcended its origins. Vela Valerius was the first to speak after the presentation. Ambassador, while these achievements are impressive, you return in violation of your exile terms. The legal status of humanity remains. Forgive me, Senator, the ambassador interrupted gently, but humanity's legal status is precisely what we are here to negotiate anew. The beings who were exiled no longer exist in any meaningful sense. We have evolved beyond them. Grek slammed his fist down. This is outrageous. They flaunt our authority, violate our decree, and then demand special treatment. The ambassador turned to him with a serene smile. Commander Grek, we flout nothing. We simply exist as we now are. Your fleet couldn't enforce your decree against us even if you wish to try. But we have not come to threaten. We have come to collaborate. Over the following days, the truth of her words became apparent. Scans confirmed that human technology was centuries beyond Concorde capabilities. Several demonstration projects, cleaning a polluted Concorde world in hours, instantaneously transporting essential medical supplies to a disaster zone, and neutralizing a dangerous spatial anomaly that had defied Concorde scientists for decades, prove humanity's good faith. Zarkali, now in the twilight of her career, produced a special report titled The Unforeseen Return, How Exile Created a Superpower. It became the most viewed broadcast in Concorde history. The negotiations were complex and often tense. Some Concorde factions feared humanity's advancements. Others sought to exploit them. The Mercantile Union saw tremendous opportunities, The elder hegemony saw threats to their ancient authority. The scientific compact was simply awestruck. In the end, a new treaty was drafted, not a readmission of Earth to the Concord, but a formal alliance between the Galactic Concord and the Unified Human Council as sovereign, equal powers. Humans would share some technologies, but retain others. They would respect Concord territories while establishing new human settlements. Joint research initiatives would be formed. When the treaty signing ceremony began, an unexpected figure joined the human delegation. Ambassador Elias Thorne, or rather, a perfect neural copy of his consciousness, preserved by his daughter centuries earlier and now housed in a synthetic body, stood alongside the Ambassador Reborn. Vela Valerius approached him during the reception. "Is it really you? The same Elias Thorne who stood before us 50 years ago." "In all ways that matter," he smiled, "though my daughter would say I'm a bit improved, less prone to diplomatic gaffes." "Your daughter accomplished something remarkable," Valus said. "My grandmother would have been fascinated." "Eris didn't just save humanity," Elias replied, looking across the room where the Ambassador Reborn was engaged in conversation with Concord scientists. "She transformed it. When the Concord exiled us, they thought they were punishing us. Instead, they freed us from constraints we couldn't see. Sometimes, rejection is the greatest gift." As the celebrations continued, Zarkali made her way to a quiet observation deck overlooking the glittering expanse of Xylos. There, she found the Ambassador Reborn standing alone. "I've been covering galactic politics for 70 years, Zarkali said, "and I've never seen anything like what you've achieved. May I ask, was this the plan all along? To use exile as a catalyst for transformation?" The ambassador smiled enigmatically. "Let's just say we made the most of our time alone. And now, what does humanity want from the galaxy it once left behind?" The ambassador turned to gaze at the stars. "Partnership when possible. Independence when necessary. We've learned that isolation has its benefits, but connection is essential. The galaxy needs both stability and change. The Concord provides one, and perhaps humanity can provide the other." Zarkali's final broadcast before retirement ended with these words. When the galaxy voted to exile Earth, humanity didn't wait to be asked twice. They left on their own terms, disappeared into a fold of their own making, and returned as something new. The question now facing the Concord is not whether to accept them back. It's whether we can adapt quickly enough to this new reality they've created. In turning their backs on us, humans faced themselves and mastered their own destiny. One wonders what other species might achieve if given, or if they gave themselves the same opportunity for reinvention. Ambassador Elias Thorne, watching the broadcast from the human embassy on Xylos, smiled. 500 years ago, he had returned to Earth in defeat. Now, a version of him had lived to see humanity's triumphant return. As the broadcast ended, he looked up at the starscape visible through the embassy's transparent dome, where the first ships from Earth, the actual Earth, abandoned but not forgotten, were scheduled to arrive soon. The exile had ended. The journey was just beginning.